Welcome to Beauty Over 50. Today I wanted to talk about our cheeks, specifically contouring, blushing, and highlighting our more mature cheeks. If you're like me, the methods, the colors that you once used don't necessarily work with more mature skin. So let's get started on me showing you how my application and colors have evolved and see if some of those might work for you. Before I start with my blush, I go ahead and make sure that all of my foundation and setting powders are in place. And then I begin with the first step, and in my opinion, the most important step, and that would be contouring. I've taken note of a lot of advice and recommendations about where to place the contour on your cheek, and I truly believe it does come down to really your own personal bone structure and face shape. A recommendation I hear a lot is look for the bone, your cheekbone here, find it, and then place it just below that cheekbone. To me, that's too low. That just creates a sunken look here, which is contrary to that lifted look I'm trying to achieve. Another recommendation I've heard is to go ahead and find the cheekbone all the way up to around here where it starts curving, and then apply the contour and even bring it up a little bit here. And I think the objective is that that will somehow help the apple of the cheek pop out and give more of a natural, healthy, plump look. For me, that's a no as well. It just looks unnatural. And again, I think it does depend on the shape of your face. For me, I naturally don't have sort of apples of my cheeks popping out, and to create that when I don't have it at all, I think just ends up looking unnatural on me. My go-to technique for the contour is to, yes, I find my cheekbone, and using an eyeshadow brush end is a good way to do it. You can use your fingers as well, but you know, if you've got your face with its foundation and setting powder, I don't necessarily want to be probing around with my fingers because it's going to disrupt that finish that you had. So I go ahead and I find the bottom of the cheekbone, and it's going to be right above that, just slightly above that I'm going to apply my contour powder. There are a lot of products out there for contouring. I tend to stick with the powders, but I know that there are a lot of nice creamy formulations out there that I see people using. I have yet to try those. I'm looking forward to it, but up to now, I've kind of stayed with powder formulas. One product that I typically reach for my contouring is this one here. It's called Too Faced Chocolate Soleil. It comes in, I believe, 2 or 3 shades. Mine's on the lighter side. It's called Chocolate Matte. It's completely matte contouring powder. MAC also has some pressed powders that are specifically designed for contouring. I believe the one I reach for is called Sculpt. What I use most frequently on my cheeks is actually not specifically designed as a contouring powder. It's actually a blush from MAC called Harmony. This is Harmony right here. It's a very neutral matte shade that just goes really well with my skin tone. When choosing the color of your contour, it's very dependent on your own personal skin color and tone. So play around with whatever shade works best for you. For the brush, I prefer to use a small angled contour brush for my cheekbone. One that I typically reach for, and again, this is a MAC, and it did come from a limited edition. I've had it, I believe, for about 10 years. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. I find that this brush just fits perfectly on my cheekbone to give me enough precision without being too harsh. If I use a smaller brush, the line is just too narrow. It becomes harsh with the color. The size of the brush is important. This is a very similar shaped brush from Urban Decay, but it's too large. When I put this brush on my cheekbone, it's covering too much area for the contouring. This smaller brush is just the right size for me for contouring that cheekbone. I have yet seen people use even a larger brush, such as this one. Again, that's just way too big. Maybe for the blush you could use this one, but for the contouring, it's important to find a brush that's somewhere in the middle. Not too big, not too small. Staying away from the apple of my cheeks, I'm going to start contouring. I start from the top and work my way down, and I stop about here. Some people say they go a little further in. Again, perhaps it's the shape of the face. I don't go further in than the outer part of my eye. I've seen people start here and work their way out. When I do that, the initial powder that I have on my brush tends to get a little too heavy here. I prefer to start here and have my brush just gently come forward. If I end up with too much here, it's easier for me to buff that out than it is if I've put too much here. Dipping it into my Harmony, I'm going to go ahead and start applying it just above where my cheekbone starts. And that's my contour line. From the front, it's not necessarily that visible. If I were to bring it in any further than that, things would start looking sunken down here. And if I had applied it down here, again, I would be getting more of a sunken look. Next up is the blush. I prefer to use more matte shade blushes or something with a very subtle shimmer. The color depends, again, on the tone of your skin. I also base the shade I choose on what clothing I might be wearing or what the season is, and vary it based on those things as well. Today I'm going to be using this color here from MAC. It's called Mocha, and it's a very neutral, matte, warm pinky shade. For the blush brush, I'm going to again use a MAC product, and again it is from a limited edition. I could probably do a video on like MAC vintage brushes. This one here is from the Selena limited edition, and it's a MAC 129 brush. They have short handles. They were from travel sized brush editions, but that works fine for me. I don't mind having the short brush. In fact, it works well for me. Some people prefer to have a much longer handle, but I guess that's just about preference. When choosing your blush brush, it's important to pick a size that just works best for your face. For me, this is a perfect size. Anything bigger would be taking product too close to my eyes or below my cheekbone. So picking something that just works right for your bone structure and your face is important. As far as placement goes, I don't follow the popular recommendation of anywhere here on the apples of my cheeks. It doesn't look good on me. It, without question, gives me a sunken, dragged down look. Some people say they stop in the middle of their eye in order to avoid the cheek apple, but for me, that is the cheek apple. So you know, I stop over here towards the end of my eye in order to avoid the apple of my cheek. So again, it's about the structure of your own face. I just simply avoid this area. It just doesn't look good on me. I find when I get blush on the apples of my cheeks, this area here on my face looks even more dragged down. And that's the look I'm not really going for. It's important to point out here too that not only have I heard the recommendations about getting the blush on the apple of your cheek, but also recommendations of taking the blush up, going right up into the temple, right up a little bit over the eyebrow even, how that creates a great look. Maybe a great look for someone with much younger skin than mine. I find that if I start taking the blush up here, it might look good on this video, but when I walk outside and hold a mirror up, all it's doing is settling into all of my fine lines and laugh lines, wrinkles, and what have you here. So in my opinion, at least on my face, whatever benefit I gain by putting color from the blush up here, that benefit is outweighed by the negative of showcasing all my fine lines and wrinkles. Dipping my powder brush into the Mocha. Again, I start from here and I work my way in. I find if I start here, I get too much product. So I prefer to go downward. I go down in small, short, light motions. Just adding more as I need it. I start light and I just build on it. I do want to add that when I apply the blush, I apply it slightly above the contouring powder, and I do not get any closer than about here to my eyes. Again, I've seen people go closer than that, and it's showcasing the wrinkles, and I just prefer not to do that. So I stay a little bit above the contour, no higher than that, and I blend it all in a forward motion. Lastly, I finish up with a very light application of highlighter. I like to use a fairly small brush. This one here is an Urban Decay 106 Pro Diffuser highlighter brush. When I place my highlighter, I like to use a precision brush so that I can be very strategic about where I choose to place my highlighter. I've seen people placing it again up and around and all of that, which for some people might look great, but for me, the moment I walk out into that lovely Florida sunshine, I'm going to be showcasing all of these fine lines and wrinkles with my highlighter blast. It's just a little more glow than I would prefer. Choosing your highlighter is up to you. They come in a lot of different shades and intensities. The one I reach for probably the most often is my MAC Lightscapade Mineralized Skin Finish. This is just such a neutral, creamy shade with just the right amount of shimmer for me. It goes with pretty much all of my makeup looks. I do switch out highlighters depending on my mood. I might wear something with a little more bronze in it or a little more pink, depending on the look I'm trying to achieve. Let's talk about placement of the highlighter. This is very important. Again, I've looked at other people's tips and recommendations. I've seen people place it here. Again, like anything else on the apple of my cheeks, that's a big no-no for me. What I find happens, not only about the sunken situation, but when I place any kind of highlighter or shimmer right here, this section of my eye just ends up looking more sunken in and dark. It's making my eyes look tired. So again, for me, no highlighter, no blush, no contour right here on my face. But where I do like to place it is just very strategically, just very lightly, maybe 3 dabs with a brush this size, right at the very top of my cheekbone. I don't get close to my wrinkles here. I don't go up here with it. Dipping it into my highlighter, I'm just going to give some subtle dabs right there. And I'll do that on either side. To finish up, I go back in with my blush brush and just blend it all together very lightly. Again, at this point, I'm not going to go up and around and too close to my eyes, because if I do that, the result will be that I will be getting product into my outer eye wrinkles and temple fine lines, and I prefer not to have it there. Let's talk about blushes with shimmer. Usually I use a matte blush and I add a highlighter of my preference. If I use a blush with shimmer in, I might just pass on the highlighter. I do have a couple of favorites that I reach for. One that I reach for frequently with a shimmer to it is this one here. It's the NARS Orgasm blush, which is iconic. I'm sure you're no stranger to it. It's just the most gorgeous coral shimmery blush. It really does look beautiful, and I use it. But when I do, I pass on the highlighter. I wanted to show you some of my favorite highlighters that I use to complement certain blushes. Bobbi Brown has a really fantastic highlighter, and one of the colors I love to go to is called Sun-Kissed Glow. This color goes amazing with any matte blush that I wear that has sort of a brown, warm shade to it. Another go-to highlighter is my MAC Extra Dimensions Skin Finish, and this one is in Show Gold. What I love about this one is it has a really pretty pink shimmer to it. So if I'm wearing blushes in the pinks, subtle pink colors, I will often highlight that with MAC's Show Gold. And it just looks really nice. So for a quick recap, you start with the contour, followed by the blush, followed by a highlighter. I stay away from the apples of my cheeks, and I avoid the temples and eye area. But again, it's all about personal taste and the shape of our faces. They're all different, so we're going to end up applying things in a different fashion. If you liked the video, please subscribe and join my channel, and I look forward to the next video. Have a great day. Bye.